Ni hao, and welcome to episode 9 of my vlog about Mao's China. And this is intended to help support students who are revising the EdXL unit in their A-level history on Mao's China. And today we're starting to look at topic 3 in that, which is all about the Cultural Revolution, and in particular this time about Mao's reasons for launching the Cultural Revolution in 1966. So we're going to run through some of the events and then towards the end consider what they tell us about why Mao started this decade-long craziness. Well, if you remember, after the Great Leap Famine, or towards the end of the Great Leap Famine, Mao took a step back from overall leadership within China. But as he did so, in January 1962, they called together a cadre conference. There were 7,000 cadres there. And Mao intended this rally to support and prevent a drift away from socialist ideas that he perceived was starting perhaps happen in the People's Republic of China. That as perhaps as the governing bureaucracy and the party got used to being in power, so they became less socialist in their outlook and in their policies. But events over the next few years didn't pan out this way, and that's seen as one of the big potential reasons for the Cultural Revolution. So after that conference in 1962, Mao withdrew himself from mainstream politics and took very much a back seat, allowing Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping and Zhou Enlai to take charge. Nevertheless, in 1963, Mao launched the socialist education movement, aiming to root out what he saw as reactionary elements through what he called the four cleanups. They were going to clean up the economy, clean up organization, clean up politics and ideology, and four cleanups: economy, organisation, politics, and ideology. I misread that there. All of which he felt needed cleansing from non-communist ideas. He wanted a public movement against corrupt Communist Party officials, and he kind of spoke out like a backseat driver in the country, trying to get this to happen through the socialist education movement. But and this is important, Liu Shaoqi took that movement, and although he ran with it, he controlled it centrally, so that it was directed against people that Liu and others thought should be cleaned up, and not directed in a chaotic way against people that Liu Shaoqi was quite comfortable with. And the other things, a couple of things to note here in the run-up to the Cultural Revolution, are that in 1963, the Diary of Li Feng was published. Li Feng, Lei, and then second name Feng. This was published following his death in an accident the year before. Li Feng had been a 20-year-old PLA soldier. There are some doubts as to whether his diary was authentic, but his diary showed that he was a devout, loyal soldier committed to Mao and Mao's ideas and to implementing them. And he was kind of seen as the model for others to follow. The other thing that's published around this time in April 1964 is Mao's Little Red Book. And this is published by Lin Biao, who later becomes leader of the PLA. And this is a collection of quotes by Mao. And again, it's intended to start promoting, again, Mao and his ideas, and Mao as the leader and guide of the whole People's Republic of China. With those two sort of initial moves behind him, in 1964 at the party conference, Mao accused Liu Shaoqi of following the capitalist road, as opposed to the socialist road. And this is where that phrase in Chinese politics, capitalist roaders, comes from. It's kind of like there are two options and you've taken the capitalist one. But at this time, Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping were both popular within the Politburo, and so Mao doesn't move against them until the next year. That is in the back end of 1965. A chap called Yao Wengyuan published an article criticising a play by Wu Han. Stick with me, this is a bit nerdy, but Wu Han had written a play. Wu Han spoke exactly how it sounds, Wuhan. His play is called Hai Roi Dismissed from Office, and it was first performed in 1961. And actually, its first performances, Mao praised the play and the plot in it. And it's a historical epic about this chap called Hai Roi, who had been a minister during the Ming Dynasty, who had been dismissed from power, essentially for sticking up for the peasants and criticizing the emperor. However, in 1965, Yao Wengyuan criticized this play, really kind of pointing out that actually the criticism of the emperor was a metaphor, or I don't know, a simile, or a code for criticizing Mao himself. And this then becomes quite political. Peng Zhen, who is leader of the five-man group that was meant to respond to anti-socialist ideas in art and literature, hadn't criticised this play at all. But Peng Zhen was, perhaps coincidentally, mayor of Beijing, and Wu Han was deputy mayor of Beijing. So basically, he was mates with the author of the play. Peng said that the play was an academic issue rather than a political issue, or criticism of the play was an academic issue rather than political issue. Nevertheless, this again starts to sort of suggest that there are people in power in China who are steering the country away from Maoist ideas. And so, in March 1966, when Liu Shaoqi was away, Mao managed to arrange Lin Biao, Kang Shen, who was head of the secret police, and Chen Boda to back his call to have Peng Zhen removed as mayor of Beijing. Crucially, at this time, although Zhou Enlai and Deng Xiaoping were there, they kept quiet, chickening out, basically, of confronting Mao. In May 1966, the official start of the Cultural Revolution is announced. The Politburo approved a circular against counter-revolutionaries in the Communist Party. A central Cultural Revolution group was set up to direct it with 17 members, but it was dominated by what became known as the Gang of Four. Jiang Qing, who was Mao's wife, Yao Wengyuan, who had written that critique of the play, Jiang Chang Chiao, it's probably quite badly pronounced, who is party secretary of Shanghai, and Wang Hongwen. I wouldn't worry too much about the names. Jiang Qing is quite important, and the others a bit less so. These are there to steer the Communist Party back towards socialist policies and socialist outlooks. And I don't mean cultural revolution. This is about how people think and act, and also what sort of art and literature and plays that they go and see and read and enjoy and observe, that it all becomes socialist. It's all about building a kind of socialist identity within the country. So it's not so much an attack on the political course of the country itself. It's an attack on kind of how things are perceived around the country. Anyway, in June 1966, Kang Sheng, the head of the secret police, began a wall poster campaign under this kind of authority of the Cultural Revolution group, but without consulting the leadership of the Communist Party themselves. Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping respond to that by sending teams to the universities to try and rein that wall poster campaign in. This is literally kind of sticking up posters on walls criticizing various people. And Liu and Deng say, oh, that's fine. You criticize individuals, great, but don't criticize the Communist Party itself. Mao becomes really angry about this because Mao actually wants to have the fight with the party. He wants the party leadership to be criticized so that he can come back and lead the party and the country in the direction which he thinks it should be going in already. In July of 1966, Mao went for a swim, as you may recall, in the River Yangtze. He swam 9 miles in 65 minutes, which is a world record. Maybe helped by swimming downstream, and also helped by people not having great stopwatches, I think. The purpose of this swim was to demonstrate his physical fitness, but also this kind of big propaganda event. I'm back, and I'm bigger and more powerful than ever. Following that come a series of mass rallies in Tiananmen Square. These are the famous mass rallies, starting on the 18th of August, 8 mass rallies with hundreds of thousands of young people invited to each one. And Mao here begins to promote his kind of version of the Cultural Revolution. Lin Biao is part of this as well, and they've all got their little red books which he had compiled, and the students are urged to attack the four olds: the old culture, old customs, old ideas, and old habits. They're given free rail passes, and the PLA, the army, at this stage are helping to transport them to the rally and then out across China afterwards. This is the start of the Red Terror. So, why does this all start? What is it that really drives Mao in this thing? Well, the Cultural Revolution is about both ideology and power. And really, if you're asked a question that why does the Cultural Revolution happen, you're kind of splitting between these two. It is about Mao being annoyed that Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping and others were not running the People's Republic of China in the way that he wanted. So have a look at Liu and Deng's economic response to the Great Leap Forward, but also these the play, Hai Roi, the fact that it's criticising the emperor, and any other policies that are happening around that time that seem to be softening the response of China to socialism, or controlling the response of China to socialism. But in order to see that changed, Mao needs to return to power. And so the Cultural Revolution is also very much about Mao coming back and restoring himself as the chairman and leader, chairman of the Communist Party and leader of the People's Republic of China. And there are some people who have suggested that actually this is about Mao's ego, that he doesn't like the fact that other people are now putting policies in place that he would not have done. And of course, he has stepped back after the Great Leap Forward because his policies had led China down a path of devastation and famine. And so it's quite legitimate for people to say perhaps we should do things slightly differently than Mao. But because Mao Zedong thought is the official ideology of China, then he kind of has that authority, perhaps, and also, I'm going to say, ego that wants to be in charge. So he can't change things without being in charge, and so you could argue actually the ideology is more important to him, and therefore look for ways in which Mao suggests that ideology is important to him. Or you might say, actually, the ideology is just an excuse for him to be in power because he likes being in power. In which case, look for examples where Mao himself is the forefront rather than the ideas. Next time, we'll look at the progress of the Cultural Revolution and the high point of it, the low point of it, I would argue, the Red Guards and the Red Terror. See you then.